Hello, I'm Susan Regan, host of Connecticut Valley Views, and my guest today is Joseph Markley. He's an astute veteran American politician who was a member of the Connecticut State Senate representing the 16th State Senate District from 2011 to 2019. He is a native of Southington, Connecticut. He was the Republican nominee for Lieutenant Governor of Connecticut on the ticket with Bob Stefanowski for governor in 2018. So, Joe, what is for you the biggest thing that came out of this latest presidential election? What stood out to you from either side, either candidate, or whatever we the people had to say?
I think the most important thing that especially Republicans ought to recognize about this is that the people are on our side on the issues. This is something I've preached for a long time. Donald Trump is an extremely unpopular man. Now, he's very, very popular with the people that like him. But something close to half the country really doesn't want anything to do with him. And yet he won the election reasonably decisively. Actually won the popular vote outright the first time Republicans have done that for a while. And I think the reason is not because of Trump's magnetic personality, which I think puts off an awful lot of people. I think it was because people are so sick of what the Democrats have been up to the last 4 years. And I would say, I think Republicans, the easy topics for us, number one is immigration, and the fact that the people of the country overwhelmingly want to have the border sealed and want to actually start deporting people. And if we're serious about it, people are going to leave. If they can't come here and work, if they can't come here and get benefits, they're not going to stay here. They'll deport themselves. Another thing is the crazy transgender, et cetera, ideology that's been shoved down our throats amazingly over the last couple of years. Another thing is what's referred to as lawfare. I think what helped Trump in the Republican Party more than anything was the obvious fact of his unfair prosecution, whatever you think of the man, the way they came after him in the legal system was outrageous. And if all the election was about had been those issues, I think the Republicans would have won even more clearly. But I think that Republicans, again, need to embrace the principles that they supposedly stand for and which presumably animate their political activity. And I think if they do it, they can win in many, many places. And they can win without Donald Trump even more convincingly than they can win with Donald Trump.
Right. Well, I am unabashedly very conservative, always watching return on investment and so forth. I feel, and I don't really argue with you about the immigration because it's costing us so much to take care of these people, but I really feel the money that people have been lacking to be able to buy groceries and make decisions between buying their medicine or buying their children's medicine or being able to afford food to put on the table. That's what I heard. And the other thing that struck me as very important was all of the early voting by the conservative side or the Republicans. That big turnout for people who normally don't get their buns out of the chair went early.
Yeah. Well, and on top of this, of course, this fundamental shift, which seems to be going on, which is, again, I think has a lot to do with Donald Trump. The fact of Hispanics and especially Hispanic men coming to the Republican Party in this last election in a dramatic way. We have tremendous opportunity there. And Trump, because he's such a vivid personality, has been able to reach people that wouldn't otherwise be reached. He's also been able to turn off people who otherwise would be available to us. Yeah. What we need is somehow, and I don't pretend to know how or be able to do it, but we need to kind of meld the populist enthusiasm that Trump has been able to bring to us with the traditional conservatism that has always been the backbone of the party. And I do hope, one of the things that worries me, it's always worried me, I don't think he's governed by principles. I don't say that necessarily to damn him. I don't think most people are, even people in politics. He's governed by instinct. His instincts have been conservative more often than not. But he needs one big thing when we talk about inflation is inflation is so tied to the growth of the money supply, to the expansion of the deficit, et cetera, et cetera. Trump has not been a man to, he's not really a small government conservative the way I am, that says, let's shrink the size of government. He has there's other things he wants to do that I think are good, but that one, which is essential, he doesn't really seem to want to do. I think we need to bring that back into the Republican Party if we want to succeed economically in the long run.
Well, look at the stock market. Stock market reacting very well, and I guess the Feds are probably going to reduce rates on mortgages and so forth, loans. But the stock market has flourished in the past 2 days. I mean, it went from, kind of back and forth, but now, it's doing great. And I think that's a very good specter. Well, I guess what we need to look at as well is he's here now. He's going to be president on January 20th of 2025. How quickly he will get things done, because the people who supported him, the people who voted for him, the people who went early, they are looking for fast.
That's right.
Biden, right now, do what you said you were going to do. He can do a lot with his executive orders, and I think that's a key thing. Now, the other thing is with this momentum to the conservative side and making things better, I hope people don't get lazy. And then, because what will we do next in the next 4 years? I mean, is Vance going to run, somebody else, DeSantis perhaps, whatever, but we need to keep this momentum going if we want everything to continue to flourish and make America great again. So I think that's key.
Yeah, one of the things that's going to be very important is how quickly and how skillfully he can fill his administration.
Yes.
And I think that was a problem for him 8 years ago.
Yes.
And it's going to be a problem. I know that they're aware of it as a problem. I think they've got Linda McMahon and other people involved in putting a transition team together. But they're also not going to have available to them some of the mainstream Republicans that they were able to bring in the first time around. Maybe that's a blessing. But if you can't bring the usual suspects into the administration, you got to have some unusual suspects that still know what they're doing. And
there
hope
could be
he has them.
Surprise suspects too that we're not looking at right now.
That's right. That's right.
But yes, I agree. He wants to fill his cabinet. That seems to be first on his list. Just very quickly, where do you think Waltz played a part, and I guess Harris losing as badly as she did? And let's face it, I mean, they were even saying on some stations just recently, oh, the election was so close. It was so close. It wasn't anywhere near close. In Arizona, I think, in Alaska or whatever. And I mean, maybe he'll be over 400 electoral votes. I don't know.
He's winning everything that it was considered possible for him to win. And he came surprisingly close in places like Virginia that nobody had given him a chance in. He picked up substantial support. New Jersey, I think, was only maybe 6 points in the end. Yes. He picked up a lot in New York State. He even picked up in Connecticut. He did better in Connecticut than he has ever done. So how much Waltz, I love talking about him because what a bonehead he turned out to be. And I didn't have any opinion of him. And when he showed up the first time, I thought, oh, maybe this isn't such a bad pick. Well, first of all, a radical liberal, despite his Midwestern middle-aged
Tim,
and a phony, as it turned out in many ways, a man that's been very slippery about his past.
Yes.
And I think that one of the turning points of the campaign, because it was such a funny campaign, Susan. You had Trump versus Biden, and then you had that disastrous debate, and then when Harris finally came in, there was this kind of moment which I anticipated that people are going to say, oh boy, we got somebody different. We're so sick of Trump and Biden. Here's another person. And Harris had a little honeymoon period. Yeah. But one of the things that put it to an end was picking Walz because he turned out to be such a dud. And his debate against J.D. Vance, when the Republicans picked Vance, Walz was the one that was saying he's a weirdo.
Yeah.
Then when they actually debate, J.D. Vance is a very normal, articulate, intelligent young man,
Yes.
and Walsh is some kind of an old coot that comes in and just is all over the place. So that was an example of not only was he not useful to the ticket, it didn't even improve. They didn't do as well this time in his home state as Biden with him on the ticket as Biden did without him. And I think that it was proof again that Harris's judgment isn't very good, and also that the Democrats don't know how to reach people.
No,
they think,
don't.
oh, put a middle-aged guy with a flannel shirt on. That's not what people want. A fellow that was putting tampons in the boys' room, a fellow that was letting the riots take place in his home state during the BLM days.
Yes, yes.
I mean, a guy that's been a radical in every way.
Yes. Yeah. What do you think of all the finger pointing going on now? I mean, Pelosi's going to blame so-and-so, and Biden's going to say you're going to be sorry you didn't let me run, and Harris is trying to find some place to, point the blame, and they're all finger pointing at each other, and still not paying any attention to the fact their message was so far off base. I mean, this reminds me of an ad that's on TV. I don't hear anything anymore. Everybody was screaming, we want the border closed, we want inflation to go away, and they just didn't pay any attention. And all she kept coming back with, I was the last one in the room, I saw the maps, Joe Biden was fine, there was nothing wrong with him mentally, and then she changes her position and, oh, fracking, yes, I'm never going to frack again, that was years ago.
Yeah.
And she's back to I'm fracking. I mean, all over the place. I don't know how anybody could believe her. I don't know.
But you're absolutely right. They can point fingers, and there's certain things they can say, well, this wasn't well done, and that wasn't well done. But their problem is they're trying to sell something that people don't want to buy.
Right.
And the only way they can sell it is, as you said, what Harris did, which was to dissemble.
Yes.
Essentially, to run away from her record of many years and to put nothing forward in its place, essentially. I mean, just to try to run on this campaign of joy, whatever that's supposed to be.
Yeah, whatever that's supposed to be.
And I understand that people can get committed to things that they think are important and say, well, maybe it's not electorally effective, but it's what I believe. But if they're exposed on it, they're going to lose. What we need is a return of moderate Democrats, who really don't exist in that party anymore.
Yes.
And I mean, at this point, Bill Clinton couldn't compete for a nomination in the Democratic Party because it has gone so far to the left.
Yes, yes. Well, the finger pointing is one thing, and I think if you were to pick the biggest mistakes, because there are a lot of mistakes made, I think one of the mistakes made was Harris trying to copy, after she found out, the conservative thing and what he was going to try to accomplish, she suddenly got onto Social Security. I'm going to take care of that. I will protect Social Security. She never mentioned that before until he put it on the list. And then he did his McDonald's thing. But one of the strongest things, I think, was the garbage people. So not only did the conservative side suffer so much financially, but now they're called garbage.
Yeah. And it was very similar, a very similar moment to Hillary with the deplorables in 2016, which I thought was a critical mistake. In fact, I've never been comfortable with Trump. I'm less comfortable now than I ever was. Yeah. But in 2016, when she said the basket of deplorables, I thought, well, that's the basket I'm in. If that's how you see the world.
Yes.
I'm one of those people, and I'm certainly I'll vote with Trump, and I'll go with them whatever hesitations I have. If you're going to make the world into that choice, then the choice I make is to line up with the people you hate. And Biden's statement about garbage was much the same thing. Of course, the fundamental problem, the biggest mistake they made was to lie about Joe Biden's mental condition so late that they couldn't come up with a better candidate than Harris. If people had been honest with Biden a year earlier, convinced him to drop out, I mean, they were able to convince him to drop out eventually anyways, but if they'd convinced him to do it in time for a proper primary process, they might have come up with a much more attractive candidate than Kamala Harris.
Yeah. What do you think about? Do you think that Bobby Kennedy Jr.
Yeah.
And Musk? Do you think they were two major good plays? I mean, obviously, and then you've got Joe Rogan.
Yeah.
Sorry, I don't listen to him on a regular basis, but anyway, those endorsements were part of the winning picture as well.
Well, RFK Jr. certainly brought some votes. When he dropped out, there was a palpable bump in Trump's support. And I think he makes a lot of sense. Boy, the press has demonized him, and they have demonized Elon Musk. They've turned Elon Musk into a James Bond villain, basically. And I think about how ridiculous this is. How we, to the extent to which they'll do anything, they can get away with anything. How important those were in the long run, I don't think any particular thing did it for Trump. It was a combination of a great number of factors. It'll be curious to see if indeed those men have a role in the administration like they're hoping. Trump, again, he's mercurial, and I think he's perfectly capable of saying one thing one day and doing something different the next week. But I can't help but think that both of them have some expertise in certain fields that could be useful.
Well, I like the idea that Musk is there because I always like balancing the checkbook. And I think he's going to go through, I think he is going to clean house on a ton of stuff. And you said you didn't think that actually Trump would necessarily be that much of a conservative in principle or reduce the size of the government. But I think Musk is after reducing the size of the government. I think there are a lot of people who he's going to find out, route their thing and pull their pants down and say, we want the reports weekly, never mind monthly or what. We're going to route you out now, and we're going to get rid of all this spending, and make a smaller government.
I certainly hope so. And I think it's possible. I mean, this is one of the things about the unpredictability of Trump. He surprises me constantly, sometimes happily and sometimes unhappily.
Right.
I will hope for happy surprises. And tackling the budget would be a natural for him.
Yes.
One that would be popular, not only with the Republican Party, but popular with everyone in America if they really saw it happening. And he does have the communications power to bring it off. What you'd need is a president that can go on TV and say, listen, there's going to be a little pain involved in what needs to happen. But this is what we're doing, and this is why we're doing it.
Right.
And Trump, in his own way, is a great communicator. Trump's problem is Reagan was a good communicator with everybody. Trump is a good communicator with the people that are on his wavelength. With the other people, he does not. He's lost, I don't know, 35-40% of the country that I don't think he'll ever get back in terms of wanting to hear what he has to say.
Mm-hmm. Do you think that this Letitia James here now, she's still on the fight, and we're going to take him down, and you've got Iran who's threatening to kill Trump and so forth. Obviously, they're prepared for these threats and so forth. But what's Letitia James? What is she doing? I mean, this to me is just over the top. I mean,
well, what's she doing? She's setting herself up. She's setting herself up to run for governor of New York. So she's making herself a hero in the Democratic Party. I think that after what we had 8 years ago with the Russian hoax,
yes.
I think the appetite for people to see this kind of legal attack is probably exhausted. And I think that they're likely that all the charges against Trump, one way or another, are likely to go away. Frankly, if Biden were a smart and a true patriot, neither of which I think he is, but if he were, I think if I were Biden at this point, I'd say I'm pardoning Trump right now. And so we can just put all of that behind us and try to start this presidency, this 4 years off on an even keel.
I do think Biden is stating that. I think that the transition period is questionable because I'm always concerned about anybody being shot, because that really has undermined the impression to the rest of the world as to whether we're a banana republic or do we really know what we're doing. And I get confused. They keep talking about democracy, and we want to have democracy in the United States. I think that word has been misused or abused, or, I mean, democracy, is it supposed to mean even keel for everybody, even opportunity, or what is that, what is that supposed to mean? So I think, I don't know during this transition period between now and January 20th, how much Trump can actually get done to prove that he is setting himself up to have everything. You push the button on January 20th and 15 executive orders immediately go into enforcement. So I hope they have the backing to do that. I hope he has that opportunity, because the people who have voted for him and got up early and voted early and so forth and so on, they will be very annoyed if stuff doesn't happen and doesn't happen soon enough.
I felt, again, I worry about whether Trump can put together the kind of administration he needs. Ronald Reagan was not a man that was interested in the depths of government. He was a visionary. He set a direction. He said, this is the way we're going to go. And very early on in his career, he attracted a group of men, serious guys, Ed Meese and so forth, who shared his vision and were with him and ready to find the people to put it into place. Trump did not have that in 2016. It remains to be seen if he's got it in 2024. J.D. Vance may be a great help to him that way. I don't know.
Yeah, J.D. Vance, I was very questionable about him at first. I felt that, maybe DeSantis could have been whatever, but I guess they've had their commentary on each other as far as DeSantis and Trump go. But I think DeSantis is going to have a play, and I think he'll run for president next. I mean, to me, he's the closest to a Trump. Now, being a Trump, or at least having the same values or principles, if you will, or objectives, if you will.
Yeah, I think it turned out, and he did it in Florida. That's one thing you can say for he would successfully transform state government in Florida and then got reelected by a big margin. Yes. So it's a very good recommendation for him. He is perhaps not as good a candidate. I mean, not to say that you've got to be a great candidate. Yeah, right. Bush Sr. and Bush Jr. were both rather poor candidates, but they won the presidency 3 times between them. Yes. So you can win without necessarily being the most charismatic man on the podium.
Yes. Well, again, the logic going forward is if things get better under Trump and things happen quickly, and making America great again is an accomplishment. Do you think that the rest? I think Laura Trump did an excellent job of handling her title, whatever it is, national chairman for the Republican Party, and I think she handled everything very well. The thing I was also impressed with about DeSantis was probably, well, number one, the FEMA thing. He got everybody in there and rescuing and helping, and FEMA wasn't there and they were there. But also in accomplishing the votes and what happened when the election itself came. Everything was tidied up, finished, all set by 8 o'clock at night. No more questions. It was done. They were done. Whatever. Right?
Hey, here in Connecticut, we still got some state legislative races that are up in the air, and I think why in the world are we waiting? Why is it only 83% reported? How can that be? You know?
Yeah, what's lagging behind? Supposedly, envelopes or something. I don't know. I don't. Yeah, I also found in Granby, Connecticut, where we live, very complicated. I mean, we used to show our license or whatever proof they required to vote, and then you got okay. And they crossed your name off, and then you went, and then you filled in your little dots, and then you put it in the machine, and that was it. Yeah. Oh, this time we went through the line, we showed them the thing, and then we went to the thing, and then we filled in the dots, and then we took the thing, and then we gave it to this lady, who then took it, who put it in the envelope, who then handed it over to another lady, and because we did early voting, okay, we're going to hold on to this, and then we're going to put this in the machine later on, not now, and I thought, why is this so much more complicated now? I mean, we just used to just put it in the machine, that was the end of it, and you got your sticky that said, I voted.
Well, hey, Susan, I still like those big old telephone booth machines with the little levers on them. I thought, what was so bad about them? I have to say, I was involved in politics back in those days,
Yes.
and there was never the slightest question about the accuracy of those machines. No, but they seemed impervious to fiddling, and yeah, but they're all in a landfill somewhere. So
yeah, it was like you were in a dressing room. You put the curtain across.
You pulled the curtain, exactly.
Yeah, and you put that across. Well, do you think that was Trump and is Harris prepared to have some interim plan? Particularly Harris, I guess I would ask it about. Interim plan, is she going to go with Letitia and say, yeah, let's keep, I mean, she did say in her closing speech, and she did take too long to call Trump. She took too long to give in. She said, no, I'm waiting till the next day. And then what was the rudest, which actually showed her personality, was all of her supporters who were waiting to hear her say something at 2 a.m. in the morning, whatever. And she said, nope, sorry, not doing it now, I'm going home. Well, gee, all those people came out for her, and she couldn't even say thank you for supporting me or anything. I'm going home to get some rest.
Well, hey, at least she conceded, which puts her a leg up on Trump.
Yes. Yeah, she conceded.
Yeah, I mean, I was glad to see that. And it's a terrible change in the country, Susan, when we have to worry about things like that.
Yeah, yes.
I used to consciously think about how wonderful it was that we'd have an election and everyone said, okay, that's it, the election, and it's over. And that was broken. It was broken by both sides at different times, and you could point figures either way on it. But it would be nice, at least. I was glad that she just came out and said, okay, it's over, I lost.
Right.
Maybe she could have done it quicker, but it was quick enough for my taste this time.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think there has to be some professionalism, decorum, seriousness. I mean, behind closed doors, you can tell somebody off in so many.
That's right.
But while we're in public, I think it's the right thing to do. Well, as usual, we appreciate your honest, forthright conversation, your responses. But again, tell people how they can reach you, if they want to follow you a bit more and see what else.
Well, I'm on Facebook, Joe Markley, and also if anybody wants to reach me by email, it's a very easy email address. It's joe@joemarkley.com. And happy to hear from anybody. I'm on the radio sometimes, but other than that, and seeing you, not so much anymore. And I'm enjoying my life, but I'm still very much concerned for my country and my state. And if I can do something to help, I'm there.
Well, again, thank you for your time.
My pleasure.
The dentist visit. We will have you on again. Obviously, you're one of my favorite guests. So.
Whenever you want, always happy to do. I've been looking forward to having this conversation with you after the election.
Excellent. All right, you take care, and we'll be in touch.
Thank you, Susan.
For our viewers, you can always see this segment on your public access TV airing channels in your town, your district, and you can always see our shows, all of our shows, past shows and current shows at www.ctvalleyviews.com. This is Susan Regan, host of Connecticut Valley Views, thanking you for joining us today.